Hi, this is Astrologer Extraordinaire, Marlene. So I wanted to comment on astrology versus psychology and or psychiatry. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because astrology is another language. Let's say that you're somebody that speaks a different language or a little bit of a number of different languages, like I would say myself, my first second language is Spanish. Now, I don't speak it 100%, but I have been speaking it since I was 12 years old, and I've lived in places where I always got to use it. So, for example, astrology is another language that takes a long time to learn it. You don't just learn it in a couple months, a couple years. You can be, maybe if you've been an astrologer in another lifetime and it's a carryover and you enter this lifetime and you become an astrologer again, you might even within a 6-month period be pretty good at doing some readings. So, but that would be based on what kind of dedication that you have. Like maybe you're studying it 8 hours a day, even if you have a job, a job that's 8 hours a day, but you're actually putting 8 hours a day into astrology. It's completely probable that you could be somewhat decent. An expert? No, not an expert, because there's just so many moving parts to it, and it's extremely comprehensive science to grasp. But that doesn't mean that you can't be, maybe able to do some decent mini readings, I would call it. So, like Spanish, I would say, habla español, no siento presente, pero bastante. So what did I just say? I speak Spanish, not 100%, but enough. So it's like, I can have a lot of conversational Spanish, but sometimes I'm not always so good at the little connector words. So, I can speak a few words of German. When I say a few words, very little, but I am at that descent. German, Austrian, Swiss, and a whole other load of different countries, because I'm basically Heinz 57. But my grandparents spoke German, so like they taught me how to count when I was very young. So I'm applying this to astrology because it is a whole other language. Now, when you become really, really good at your trade, there are many astrologers that really you could compare a really expert, experienced astrologer to a psychologist or even a psychiatrist, because for them, they have a whole different set of toolbox and tools that they use to arrive at a similar determination that I might be able to arrive at, but I'm an astrologer. I'm not a psychologist, although, yeah, I've had a year in psychology many, many years ago by a professor who was actually a college professor of psychology. In that particular year that I had a year of psychology that was only taught in high school, the professor who was also in that class he decided that he didn't want to be a college professor of psychology anymore, and he wanted to be a high school teacher of psychology. So I had the benefit of basically having 2 psychology teachers in that class. So anyhow, so what I'm doing is giving you examples because a really high level astrologer is pretty much comparable to an expert psychologist and or psychiatrist, but they have a whole different toolbox, and they're arriving at those what may be similar conclusions that a psychologist or a psychiatrist would arrive at, but it's an entirely different language that again can take years and years to learn, and or in my experience, for me, it's decades, and 35 years to be exact. So I just thought I would touch on that because that came to mind from a video that I was watching today where somebody was talking about, they were doing a tarot reading actually, and they were trying to describe, they were saying, you know, I don't know how to describe this. How do I say this? And that was the exact word that that person used, but she didn't come to the conclusion, or she didn't say in there the term astrology, because she doesn't really know how an astrologer arrives at the answers that they do. And so you can't really know that unless maybe you've had a reading by an astrologer. Even then, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to explain it to another person. So anyhow, I hope that helps a little bit. Anyway, okay, we'll catch up with you later. Bye.